Today we are going to look at how to manually calculate your calorie needs or your energy needs. And the way we're going to do it is through a manual formula anyone can do, find your maintenance and then work from there, and both look at how to build your plan around maintaining, losing fat or losing weight in the short term to long term, and gaining muscle or gaining weight in the short term to long term. So before we go on, obviously the goal is to limit muscle loss when losing weight and kind of prioritize losing fat more so. Just like when building weight, the idea is to add muscle more so than fat, or to limit the amount of fat you gain. So just all things being equal, I'm not going to mention it again. I'm going to assume that we're kind of have a base knowledge that in order to do that, strength training is going to be important along with a protein-rich diet. So I'm just going to assume all of those things are equal while we're talking about manually calculating our calorie needs and building it into our own plan. So today is going to be a simple guide. I don't go through calorie counting with everyone. I don't think everyone needs to do it, but some people definitely do to get a base knowledge. It's a bit of a shortcut. It's an easy way to do it, but it does still require a bit of effort and a good bit of patience and consistency along the way as well. So before we get going, we are going to, one second, I click onto the next slide. We're going to talk about the trial and error component. So it's important to note that this is a general calculation, and all it does is it gets you within the ballpark. So in order for you to nail down close to the exact calories, you must track over time and study the trends. Much like all other methods, teething time must be accounted for. So for example, if you're going to track your food and you're going to really nail down your calories, and that's kind of all you're going off, maybe you're taking a few photos or checking your weight here and there, it's kind of not going to be accurate enough. What you need to do is put that on one side, track everything you need to there, and then track some other metrics, be it, I don't know, maybe photos every day. What I would say is get on the scales. The scales isn't going to lie. If you want to lose weight, obviously you're going to see the trends go down. So you're going to see pounds dropping. So if you think you're nailing your calories and everything, but yet the pounds aren't going down on your scales, either the scales is broken or you are not doing it right. And more often than not, the scales are fine. So there is a trial and error component, and there is a bit of figuring out along the way. So moving on, we're going to go through some steps. So very basic to start. The steps are download MyFitnessPal, MFP, or any other app. So there are apps you can pay for that might be a little bit more accurate, but really the accuracy isn't extremely important. It's the consistency. Of course, accuracy is going to be important as we start weighing foods and things like that. But I mean, if you're using a consistent app, that's going to be consistent for you. So whether it's MyFitnessPal or a different app and they track things differently, as long as you're using that and going off the metrics on that, you're going to get to that point eventually. So track some food for a week, play around with the scanners on the app, learn to weigh food, log your usual meals, and start to understand how many calories your regular meals come to. So let's say you get your goal for losing weight and it's blowing up 1800 calories is where you need to be in a deficit consistently. And you figure out that you're tracking your food, and before 12 o'clock even comes, you've got 900 calories gone between, I don't know, a big breakfast and a snack before 12 o'clock. And then you realize, oh God, 50% of my intake is gone and I'm not even halfway through the day yet. And you're someone who won't be in bed till 10 or 11 that night. Then there's a lot of hours there to get in very few calories. So it's going to teach you how to spread your calories throughout the day a little bit more. And you're going to see a direct kind of correlation between, or a direct example of how much your meals are taking up as percentage wise of the whole day. So for example, you might think you're having a small meal at lunch or whatever, but that might be quite a calorific meal. So again, tracking is going to get you there. Calculate your calorie needs and align it with your goals. Track for 5+ days and see where your calories are falling. So while you have this calorie goal, I always kind of say to people, it's good to track without keeping that goal in mind yet, just to see exactly where they're falling and how they're doing in relation to the sum that we come to, or the calculation that we come to. Just to give yourself a bit of a ballpark as, am I way over? Am I close? Is it achievable in the short term to get to that number? Do I need to break it down? So for example, your goal is 17 or 1800 calories like we talked about, and you track for 5+ days and you notice you're coming to 2500 calories. well, it might not be ideal to jump straight to 1800 calories. You know, we might need to block down to 2300 one day, 2100, or 1 week, 2100 the next for a couple of weeks, and then get down to that goal. You know, sometimes too big of a jump is going to be quite a tricky one for some people. So again, everyone's individual. Other people might be just better off jumping straight to their calorie goal that they're given. So track your metrics through scales to make sure that your weight is aligning with your calorie goal, which may take a few weeks, especially for women. So that's what I said at the start. If you're tracking your food and you're trying to gain weight, well, you need to check the scales and make sure that is happening. Because if you're trying to gain weight, gain muscle, but the scales aren't moving up, and some days they're stagnating, other days they're down, the odd day they might be up, and it's not on that upward trend after a couple of weeks or 3 to 4 weeks, then there are some changes you need to make. Simple changes like adding a few hundred calories to each day. So moving on again, we're going to go through the actual calculation. So for me, I'm going to use my example. I'm going to take my body weight in kg. I'm going to multiply it by 22 to 24, and that is going to give me Y. So Y is just what we'll call the first one. So 22 to 24 is just a ballpark of your activity levels throughout the day. So 22 being low daily activity, 23 moderate, 24 high. So it's a very simplistic view. It kind of puts a lot of people into the one box. Some people might be edging on the high, some people might be edging on the low, but they're both moderate. So there is a bit of estimation throughout it. A ballpark you could use is low daily activity is an average of below 10k steps a day. Moderate could be 10k to 20k steps a day on average over a period of time, and high could be 20k steps plus on average. One thing I will say is a lot of people are in that 22 range, even if they think they're higher activity. So this does not mean how much exercise you do. If you exercise 5 days a week, but you sit down for the rest of the day at work and at home, and you train very hard those 5 days, that's irrelevant. You're a number 22. You're a low daily activity. So a lot of people think they are higher than they are. For example, I give myself a 23. I will coach between the hours of 6 a.m. and 2 p.m. or between the hours of 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. During those, I will coach 6 to 7 hours. I will be on my feet, walking around, doing demos and moving quite a bit. And within those 6 to 8 hours, I could rack up 15 to 20,000 steps easy. And that's not including the training I will do before or after work myself. It's not including walking the dog. And it's not including some other activity I might partake in, be it bringing the kayak out or whatever. Do you know? So I would still consider myself moderate on average. So that's going to give you an example of where you are. If you're sitting at a desk all day, or you're a teacher standing or sitting in the same place all day, you're number 22. So for example, 80 kg multiplied by 23 gives me 1840. That's my Y. You multiply your Y by 1.2 to 1.9, and this will give you your maintenance. So 1.2 to 1.9, now we're getting into the meat of bones of your actual training. So not your daily activity, but your required training. So 1.2 is little training. 1.375, train 2 to 3 days a week. Then you got train 4 to 5 days a week, 6 to 7 days a week. And then 1.9 is train hard every day, or even twice a day some days. So for me, I'm going to put 1.5, train 4 to 5 days a week, because I do take 1 to 2 full rest days a week. And a lot of my training these days is pretty easy. Nothing's really too hectic. So I can't see why I would put any higher than that. What would that push out? So if I go for 1840, my Y, and I multiply that by 1.5, that's going to give me 2208. 2,208 calories is my maintenance. I could just say 2,200 calories is my maintenance. Moving on then, you got to ask yourself, what's the goal? So I have 2 goals here. I have 3A and 3B. So lose fat or weight, and then 3B is gain muscle or weight. So 3A, this might sound like a bit of gibberish, but I'm going to leave the slide up for a bit while I talk, and it's a very simple calculation. So to go through it, I take my maintenance calories, 2208 or 2200. I'm going to stick to what it is on this, 2208. And I ask myself, do I want to go from the short term to the long term when it comes to weight loss? So for short term, I'm going to talk 0 to 6 weeks. For long term, 6+ weeks, more like 8 to 12 or 8 to 16. So lose weight in the short term. My maintenance calories multiplied by 80%. So what I'm going to do is, in order to lose weight or lose fat, you want to take 10 to 20% off of your calories. So I'm going to make it very simple. Of course, you can block it in the middle with 15% or whatever. I'm going to make it very simple just for this, and I'm going to go 20% in the short term. Why am I going 20% for a short term? I know I'm only going to be cutting for a short term, so I want to go a bit more aggressive. If it's a long term, I want to make it more sustainable, so that 10% model makes more sense. So why do I multiply by 80% or 0.80? Because I'm leaving a 20% gap. So 2208 is 100% for me. So in order for me to get my 80%, I multiply by 0.80. So 20% deficit for me is 2208 multiplied by 0.80. And that throws out 1766.4 calories. That's my aggressive cut. Then in order to lose it in the long term, I'm only going to go 90%, which will throw out, it's the same, 2208 by 0.90, 1987 calories. Of course, you can round these up and round them down. They're only ballparks. So what does this tell me? Let's say I hit an aggressive one, but I see my weight really isn't dropping, or it's dropping extremely small rates. For some people, that'll be fine if you're already quite lean. But if you're someone who has a bit of weight to lose and you see there's 0.3 pounds dropping on average or 0.2 pounds dropping on average, you know you're in the ballpark, but you're not fully there. Drop another 100 calories off or drop another 200 calories off and just go from there. You know, it doesn't have to be too complicated for the general public. Next one we are talking about is gaining muscle or weight. So it's 10 to 20% for losing, and for gaining we go 5 to 10%, because when we're gaining weight, there is that sort of psychological thing that people hate. When you're gaining weight, you are going to gain a little bit of fat tissue. That's fine. Obviously, you want to limit it like I talked about at the start, but if you're going to gain it, understanding that you're going to gain a bit of fat is fine. But a less aggressive approach is better, so 5 to 10%. Again, talking long term to short term. Short term, I'm going to go 10%, the bigger one, because I know it's only going to be a short few weeks and I can lump on. Long term, I'm going to go for a smaller, more sustainable surplus. So gaining weight in the short term, still 2208 calories is my maintenance, so that's my one. But now to get a 10% surplus, I multiply my 2208 by 1.10, 110%, and that gives me 2428 calories. Same in the long term, I multiply it by 105%, and that will give me 2318.4 calories. So again, you can ballpark it like 2318.4, just say 2300 calories. Again, check the scales, check everything alongside it, check the trends, make sure that you are actually gaining weight. So that's up there for anyone who needs to screenshot it. It's pretty simple. Things to note before we go on. So once you get the calculation, it's all about patience, consistency. As I said, trial and error is part of the process. Track your weight alongside the calories to get a clear picture of what is going on. So I made a video on YouTube about how to track your weight accurately for anyone who wants to look at it. I might link it below so you can click to it quickly. Look at the trends of weight and adjust calories accordingly. And before moving on, there is something you should know. So human error is real. A lot of studies have shown this. A lot of studies continue to show this. But I went with the more aggressive study from 1992. So by Stephen W. Lichtman and company, I don't know how it's pronounced, doesn't really matter. The discrepancy between self-reported and actual caloric intake and exercise in obese subjects. So this took 224 people and it put them on a pretty extreme 1200 calorie diet per day. They were obese, I believe, or whatever their line of BMI or whatever it was that they used, body fat percentage, to classify someone as obese. They gathered kind of a pool of people. So they focused on energy expenditure and calorie intake. So what they focused on was the amount of calories you are taking in and your daily activity. So talking about that 22 to 24 range that we talked about at the start. So the subjects who didn't seem to lose weight were actually doing two things. And this comes up quite a lot. So one, they were over-reporting their physical activity by 51%. They thought they were a hell of a lot more active than they actually are. So for example, people who work at a desk all day, but who might go for a little stroll at lunch, they tend to think, their activity is quite high, but for a big portion of the day, it really isn't high. So they over-report. Then they were under-reporting their energy intake by 47%. Again, this is huge. So there's a difference between a handful of carbs and a handful of half. There's a difference between a thumb of fat and 3 thumbs of fat, but people kind of are under-reporting it all the time. This is why it can be a good idea to use the scanner, to use weighing scales, to use things like that you're going to be quite accurate. So when you are making your own plan, you want to be as accurate as possible. So if you notice, let's say your deficit is 1,500 calories and you think that's quite low, and maybe it is for some of you, probably is, and you're tracking 1,500 calories, but your weight isn't going up, isn't staying. In fact, it's going up the odd time and kind of coming back down and stagnating around where you started, and it's been 3 or 4 weeks. Then what's happening is you are underreporting the energy intake. So either you get more accurate or you pull some more calories off. Because if it says you're eating 1,500 calories through your report, it's probably something like 1,800 that you're actually